What if the reason budgeting feels like deprivation, like holding your breath underwater, isn't a character flaw? What if it's a signal that the standard financial advice is missing something fundamental about how the brain actually works under pressure? The conventional wisdom is almost embarrassingly simple. You spend more than you earn. You don't track where the money goes. You lack discipline. The solution, therefore, is equally simple. Write down your income, write down your expenses, subtract one from the other, and then, crucially, stick to it. Show up every month. Build the habit. The discomfort is the point. It's called delayed gratification, and the research on it goes back decades. The famous marshmallow experiments, the idea that people who can resist short-term temptation end up wealthier, healthier, and more successful over time. Financial advisors build entire frameworks around this. Budgeting apps are designed around it. The implicit message in nearly every personal finance book ever written is some version of the same sentence. If you feel resistance, push through. The discomfort is temporary. The rewards are worth it. And on the surface, this is not wrong. Consistency does matter. Habits do compound. If you never know what you spend, you cannot change it. There's genuine truth in this framing. The problem isn't that it's false. The problem is that it's incomplete in a way that actively harms the people it claims to help. Here's the gap that most financial advice never acknowledges. The research on self-control and delay discounting, the technical term for how strongly we prefer immediate rewards over future ones, has been conducted almost entirely in controlled lab settings. Participants sit in rooms. They are asked, would you prefer $5 now or $10 in 2 weeks? Their responses are measured and mapped. From this, researchers conclude things about financial self-control, about who saves and who doesn't, about what predicts long-term financial health. A 2022 study in a psychiatry journal went further than most, developing a model specifically designed to evoke consistent behavior during these reward and loss discounting tasks, trying to create cleaner measurements of the phenomenon. A 2019 genomic study attempted to identify the actual genetic architecture underlying individual differences in delay discounting, finding real heritable variation in how people value future versus present rewards. This is serious science. The findings are not trivial, but here's the measurement trap. The lab strips away the conditions that define real financial life. There is no overdue rent in the experiment. There is no child who needs school shoes. There is no ambient hum of financial anxiety that follows you to sleep and is still there when you wake up. When research participants discount the future, when they choose $5 now, they are doing so in a state of cognitive calm. When real people discount the future, they are often doing so while their nervous system is telling them the present is a threat. Those are not the same decision. They involve different neural architecture. And treating them as equivalent is where the mainstream account goes wrong. There is a body of research that points somewhere the standard advice doesn't look. A 2019 study found that when financially deprived individuals underwent a self-affirmation exercise, a simple act of reconnecting with their own values, their delay discounting decreased measurably. They became more willing to wait for the larger reward, not because their circumstances changed, not because they received financial education, because something in their psychological state shifted. The implication is uncomfortable. The problem wasn't the knowledge, it was the internal state they were operating from. A separate line of research on stress and decision-making is even more direct. A 2020 study tracked brain responses to stress on a trial-by-trial basis and found that those fluctuations predicted subsequent decisions made several seconds later. Stress doesn't just make you feel bad. It reorganizes how you evaluate options in real time. When you open a budgeting app after a hard day and feel that immediate urge to close it, that's not weakness. That's a stress-altered decision architecture responding to perceived threat. Research on behavioral economic biases in real-world populations, as opposed to lab populations, adds another layer. A 2023 study examining financial decision-making in a community sample found that delay discounting and present bias were significantly elevated in contexts of chronic resource scarcity. The harder life is, the steeper the discount. The steeper the discount, the harder it becomes to prioritize future financial health. It is a feedback loop. Standard budgeting advice enters this loop and says, try harder. What the research suggests is that trying harder is often precisely the wrong intervention, because effort under chronic stress depletes the same cognitive resources you need for future-oriented thinking. There's also a developmental dimension worth noting. Research on how reward systems mature across adolescence shows that the brain circuits governing future-oriented choice are among the last to fully develop, and that they remain sensitive to environmental stress long into adulthood. Some of what we call financial immaturity may be better understood as environmentally suppressed executive function. That's not an excuse. It is a more accurate map, and a more accurate map leads to different interventions. To be clear about what this evidence does not prove, it does not prove that budgeting is useless, or that discipline is irrelevant, or that circumstances excuse every financial decision. The research shows that internal state and environmental context modulate self-control in ways that are often invisible to the person experiencing them. That is not a small thing. It is the part of the picture that standard financial advice consistently leaves out. Topographic map, closer memory. So what does this actually mean for you? For the specific feeling of sitting down to look at your bank account and finding reasons not to. It may mean that the times you failed to stick to a budget were not primarily failures of willpower. They may have been moments where your nervous system was operating in a stress threat mode that made future rewards genuinely less real to your brain than they are when you're calm. That's worth sitting with. There's a perspective from anthropology that lands strangely hard here. No culture in recorded history prepared people ritually for the transition into financial adulthood. Every other major life transition, birth, coming of age, marriage, death, had ceremony, elders, instruction, initiation. Financial adulthood arrives on a Tuesday with no map and no guide. You are handed compound interest and tax brackets and the concept of opportunity cost, and you are expected to navigate them correctly while also being a person with a nervous system under pressure. Old ceremonial gathering, blurred, impressionistic, contrasted with modern empty office corridor. The shame that follows when you can't is not inevitable, it is a design failure. And there is something almost Jungian in how budgeting resistance works. The spreadsheet is a mirror. What you avoid looking at financially often reflects what you haven't yet looked at about yourself. Beliefs about whether you deserve security, whether abundance is for other kinds of people, whether the future is even worth planning for. That's not therapy speak dressed up as finance. That's a pattern that shows up in the research on self-affirmation and financial behavior. What you believe about your own worth changes how you treat your money. Here is where I land, reluctantly. The evidence suggests that budgeting, done without addressing the stress and psychological state underneath the financial behavior, is often just documentation of a problem you already know you have. It tells you where the water is leaking. It doesn't necessarily fix the pipe, but I don't have a clean alternative to offer. The research points towards self-affirmation, towards stress reduction, toward addressing the internal state before the external behavior. Whether those interventions scale, whether they work for someone in genuine financial crisis rather than a study participant in a relatively stable situation, that is genuinely unclear. The honest answer is that personal finance sits at the intersection of psychology, neuroscience, economics, and culture, and no single discipline has a complete account of it. What I'm confident of is this. If your budgeting approach relies entirely on willpower deployed against your own nervous system, the research suggests you are working against yourself. There may be a better question than why can't I stick to a budget? The better question might be, what state do I need to be in for future-oriented thinking to feel possible at all? The research behind this video draws from frontiers in psychology, biological psychiatry, cognitive neuroscience and neuroimaging, AIDS research and therapy, frontiers in psychiatry, behavioral processes, psychology of addictive behaviors, Journal of the Society of Psychologists in Addictive Behaviors. Every claim traces to a published source. Full citations are in the description below. If the way this channel thinks about neuroscience resonates with you, subscribing helps this work reach people who'd appreciate it. New videos on the science of mind every week.